What is going on, fight fans? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of The Main Event here on Franchise Sports Media. I am your host, Kalani Griff, along with my co-host, Griff Kemp. Griff, how we doing tonight?
After that fight card, I'm doing beautiful, man.
Let's get right into a UFC 274 recap show. Man, oh man, did we have a fun night of fights here in the UFC. The main event. Now, real quick, let me just break it down. Coming into the fight, Charles Oliveira, the UFC lightweight champion, was defending his title against Justin Gaethje. Oliveira came in half a pound over the 155-pound limit. He had 1 hour to lose his weight. He was unsuccessful in doing so. Therefore, if he won tonight, which we'll get into, he would vacate the title but become the number one contender in the division. If Justin Gaethje won, he would become the champion and move forward from there. Oliveira, Gaethje took on tonight. And Griff, I'll let you start off. What did you think of the main event?
First thought I have in my head is, when are people going to start putting some respect on Oliveira's name? When are we going to start respecting him as a champion? Let's forget about the, not making weight. Yes, he came over 0.5 pounds. And when it comes down to a title bout, you got to be strict with the weight. You got to be strict. But at the end of the day, look what he's done to some of the two of the greatest names in the lightweight division. Not just Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje as well. Comes out, I think he finished both of them in the same round, second round.
Yeah, he plays no games whatsoever. Charles Oliveira plays no game, came out there, and I'm with you. You got to be a professional. You sign the contract for a certain weight, you got to make the weight. But at the same time, when it's half a pound, you got to think, okay, he didn't make any excuses, but okay, maybe something was off with my scale. He said when he went to sleep, he was on weight, he woke up 1 pound over. What happened? Did someone give him an IV during sleep? I'm not sure. But nonetheless, he came out. Here's what was a little interesting for me at first. When Oliveira came out, he shook hands of 4 guys in the stands. He goes in, he sees Justin Gaethje, shakes his hand, but then shakes his corner's hands, his entire team that's on the stage. In my mind, I'm thinking, either this dude is extremely confident or he knows, like, hey guys, I'm sorry, I just couldn't make it. But he came out and he heard the talk. He heard Justin Gaethje was this Terminator, the guy that comes forward, he hits hard, he's gonna knock him out. And Oliveira said, oh, you guys ain't been watching my last few fights, have you? He's been working on it. He stood in the phone booth, he went fire to fire, he went toe to toe with Gaethje, was able to throw some bombs, took some bombs himself, but ultimately he was able to go ahead and knock Gaethje down, get the rear naked submission choke on him. What an impressive outing by the Brazilian.
It was just impressive. And in every fight that Oliveira has had since his fight with Chandler and when he initially won the belt, I've just been more and more impressed with him. I had my doubts with him when he beat Chandler for the belt. I thought to myself, this is a guy who's only had 1 fight in the UFC, and that's how you get the lightweight strap. Doesn't deserve it. That's what I thought initially. But now he's beaten Poirier convincingly. Fought Gaethje convincingly. And now it's to the point where, when are we going to start respecting the man as what he is? And that is the 155-pound champion.
Well, I think, like you said, you want that respect, you got to earn that respect. And by doing so, you got to be some of the top guys there. And you named some guys that had the reputation, that had the resume, and had the skill set that people felt, okay, Charles, let's see what you do against this guy. Ooh, hey, you did pretty good. Let's see what you do against this guy, though. It's getting to that point where it's like, hey, guys, I'm the true champion here. Even though right now, technically, the title is vacant and he's not the champion, Charles Oliveira, the number one contender, he has shown, I'm here to stay. And maybe, just maybe, is inching closer to possibly being in a discussion for greatest lightweight champion of all time. We'll dive into that at another time.
Yep.
The co-main event saw Thug Rose Namajunas putting her title on the line against Carla Esparza. Now, Carla Esparza was the inaugural UFC strawweight champion, defeating Rose Namajunas on the Ultimate Fighter season finale. This fight, not much action, but a very interesting decision. What did you make of the co-main event? Heartbreaking to see that, especially for me. I am a true Thug Rose fan, and to watch the performance she put out there tonight, I was hoping for more. I was hoping to see the same heart she had against Wei Lee. I was hoping to see that same Thug Rose that came out there and was claiming to the world that I'm the greatest. But tonight, it just didn't seem like it. It seemed like she kind of settled a little bit, kind of seemed like she thought to herself, I have the belt around my waist. What do I have to fight for? You watch the fight tonight and you have to kind of think to yourself,
maybe if she was the underdog in this fight, maybe she performs better. Maybe she takes more chances.
It is interesting to see the mindset and even the tactics of some fighters. Like you said, sometimes when a fighter has their back against the wall and they don't feel anyone's in their corner, they got to come out with a little fire lit underneath them. Other times when you're in the front and you're the one being hunted, and this is something that the great Georges St. Pierre said, greatest of all time, no doubt about it. When he says it's easier to climb it, the mountain to the title, as opposed to staying up there and defending your title, because you get comfortable. The great boxing middleweight champion, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, said it's hard to wake up and run 5 miles waking up in silk sheets. And it's so true. When you get that level of success, and that's why when you do have champions and you do have people that have long reigns of success, fan of them or not, you gotta respect the fact that they are doing something very few can get. It's one thing to be hungry and get to the title and then win it, but can you stay at the mountaintop? Can you stay on top and defend it time and time again? Be on the posters, be in the trailers, be in the interviews for ESPN, Fox Sports, One Day Franchise Sports Media. Can you do those things and still come out the champion at the end? It's very tough to do. Speaking of tough to do, man, the people's main event right here. Michael Chandler taking on Tony Ferguson. What is tough to do? It's fun, but it's also tough to watch a finish like that. What did you make of Chandler's KO of Ferguson?
Anyone who's a casual fan, this is not for you, all right? If you're a long-time fan of the UFC, you're a diehard. It's hard to watch that fight that we watched tonight against Ferguson and Chandler, all right? Tony Ferguson, long-time legend of the UFC, but when you get knocked out like that, especially with the last 3 fights that he's had, and he's on this streak that he's been on of just straight losing, it's hard to see him go out like that. I don't think we've ever seen Tony Ferguson go out like that before. So the fact that we saw Chandler get the win tonight and the way that he got it against a legend in Tony Ferguson, I think it does well for Chandler's career. It might be a sign of the end of Tony Ferguson in the UFC.
It's tough to watch because El Kukui, Tony Ferguson, one of the greats to ever step in the cage. And it's unfortunate because during his time, he had like 5 different bouts against Khabib that were supposed to happen, never did. Khabib gets injured, has to pull out. Tony gets injured, has to pull out. All this trickery going on, and it just never happened. And you just felt bad because you felt like all those times, each time it went away, it just, when the door was about to open for Ferguson, they closed. Then, like you said, his last 3 bouts, going out there, losing in the manner in which he did. Then this one, a second round front kick to the face knockout. I mean, it was fun to watch because we love fights and we love the knockouts. But you see Ferguson go down the way he did, and you're like, oh, wait, is he okay? We do see him on the stool. We do see him walking around. He did leave. He was embraced by former light heavyweight champion Chuck Liddell. But, oh, man, Michael Chandler, ever since coming over from Bellator, not Strikeforce, coming over, and he has shown he's game. I am swinging for the fences. I'm either going to hit a home run or I'm going to strike out. I'm going to kill or be killed. He's been a fun fighter to watch. He has shown he can hang with the big boys. I love his fight style. I love his story. And he is electric to watch. Once again, somebody who lost to Charles Oliveira. But, man, oh, man, Chandler Ferguson could have been the main event of another card of its own. I'm glad it was on this particular one. Now that we've talked about the 3 big fights on the card, let's get into specs. Let's start with Charles Oliveira. He's the number 1 contender at 155. Remember, he had to vacate the title, so he's the number 1 contender. Whoever is going to be standing across from him for the cage, it will be for the belt. What are your thoughts on what should happen next for the Brazilian?
This may be controversial. It might not be something anybody wants to hear, but I'm here to tell you right now. I'm going to look right into the camera when I say this. Ole, ole, ole. There's a champion, a former champion who's sitting right now recovering from an injury. He's looking for a shot to get a belt that he once had. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Dana White, the big dog, decided to say, hey, you know what? The champion doesn't have currently the belt right now. There's the vacant belt at 155. Let's put Conor McGregor out there. Let's see if Conor still has it. Let's see if the old Irish can still come here to not take part, but take over.
Wow, you're going for Conor McGregor. Surprise, surprise.
Yes, sir.
But I will say, in a weird dimension, it kind of makes sense.
Doesn't it?
It kind of makes sense. But here's the thing. McGregor has lost his last 3 bouts in the UFC. 2 of them, he got knocked out and had his leg broke. In some ways, you want to say, hey, Conor, don't you need to win a fight? Don't get me wrong. This is not me bashing Conor. This is just stating the facts. Doesn't he need to win a fight, though, in order to say, hey, I'm due this is thought about against Charles Oliveira? I love the idea, but come on. He's got to win a fight to get there first, doesn't he?
When you're talking about it makes sense that he has to get a win before he gets the title fight, let me tell you right now, it didn't make sense for the 145-pound champion to get right off and get a 155-pound fight for the title for 155. That didn't make sense. It didn't make sense for a kid from Dublin, Ireland, to come out from nowhere from the scrums of being a plumber and come all the way up to be the face of the UFC. Nothing makes sense with Conor McGregor. Why are we changing it now? Let's let the man do what he does best and make history.
When you're the champion of one division and you move up, you get a title shot. That's what Israel Adesanya did when he moved up to 205. So to say, well, at 45, he got a shot at Eddie Alvarez for the 55 title because he was the champion.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't just move up from 45 after losing 2 fights in a row and then say, oh, yeah, I'm going to fight the champion at 155. He didn't do that. You got to win the fight at the next one. You got to win the fight coming back. This is a litany of killers in the division. Guess what? There's a guy that we just talked about, and Michael Chandler, that just says, I just knocked out El Kukui, the boogeyman. Why shouldn't I get a rematch with Charles Oliveira? I almost beat him the first time we fought for the title when it was vacant. Let's run it back. Why not Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira?
You beat a man on a 4-fight losing streak, and you think you have a shot at the title?
Oh! As opposed to someone who's on a losing streak himself, he deserves a shot at the title. At least I won.
To be fair, I don't count a broken leg, a doctor's stoppage, as Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor would say. I don't count that as a loss. But at the same time,
what about the fight before that?
The fight before that?
What about the fight before that against Poirier?
I mean, Conor himself would say that he was preparing for a boxing match, so maybe his head wasn't in that fight. But I will say this. Okay. If we do want to see him win one fight before he gets that title shot, like you said, he just beat El Kukui. Why not Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor?
I'm glad you brought that up because in his post-fight interview, Michael Chandler did call out Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor responded on Twitter and says, hey, that sounds like a good matchup to me. Now, he didn't sound fully invested on accepting the fight, but he did sound interested that maybe one day we will fight, which means he might have been looking and said, hey, let me see how the main event plays out first. Because if Oliveira wins, that's who I want because it's a title. And don't get me wrong, from a business standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world. From a fan standpoint and from the standpoint of, fairness, common sense, do we really want Conor McGregor coming back? He's the pay-per-view king. He's the face of the UFC. We get that. But there's got to be some precedent set that says, hey, you at least got to have some success here before we reward you. Someone has to do that. We're not giving out participation trophies here, Griff.
True. But when you have most of the top in history pay-per-view buys in the UFC, when you are still, and anyone can argue this point if they want, when you are still the face of the UFC, and Dana White is in the business of not fairness, he's not in the business of, like you said, participation trophies. He's in the business of making the UFC the biggest brand that he can make it. And what's the best tactic than putting the biggest face, the biggest name you have on the roster, up for the title? And if not, then if he's not able to go up right straight for a title shot, get him Michael Chandler. Put him in there with Michael Chandler, and let's see how they go. If they're gonna fight, Michael Chandler, who has fought not just Justin Gaethje, who just lost the title, but also Oliveira, who is now the #1 contender. Let's put him in there with Michael Chandler. If he comes out there with a win against Michael Chandler, I don't think there's any reason to argue why that man doesn't deserve a title shot right away.
No, if he beats Michael Chandler, he definitely deserves a title shot right away. We could dive more into that whole scene Wednesday on our show, The Main Event, right here on Franchise Sports Media. What about Carlos Rosa? She's the new champion. Rose hasn't defended the title long, so does she get an immediate rematch? Does Carla get another contender? Who do you think the women's strawweight champion should fight next?
It'd be hard for me to say Rose doesn't deserve an immediate title shot, but it's almost when you have Rose, who just went through her not trilogy, but she went through her series with, when she got the belt. It's almost, maybe they want to see a little bit of difference. Maybe put Esparza in there with a new contender. Maybe Rose doesn't get that immediate rematch. But at the same time, I can see her getting it. But it's just, it's a weird situation there. And Dana White and everyone else in the UFC and the head of the UFC, they're going to have to decide what's going to be the best, what do fans want to see. I would not be mad to see Thug Rose back in there fighting for the title and putting her back in that position of being the underdog.
I could definitely see that. Possibly the winner of Joanna Jacek versus Wednesday Lee later this year. When that fight happens, Carlos Rosa could get Michael Chandler. Obviously, he's in the mix with Charles Oliveira and Conor McGregor on what's going to happen next. Stay tuned. It's going to be fun
Stay tuned.
It's going to be fun to find out. But thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Franchise Sports Media's The Main Event. I'm Kalani Lua. This is Griff Kemp. This show has been brought to you by our sponsor, the Liquids Club. Make sure you go ahead and get that nice hydration in with them. Be sure to check us out for more coming forward. Till next time, everybody. Peace.